Hello, my name is Jeffrey Tundatul, and I did my project on a social movement that was called Paintballs Up and Guns Down. So, the first time I heard about this movement was about 6 to 7 months ago, when this YouTube video was recommended to me through the algorithm in YouTube. And just looking at the title, I was like, oh, that sounds interesting. Let me take a look at it and watch the video. And in the beginning, they were talking about how this movement was causing a lot of problems. And then the reporters were talking to some of the participants in the movement. And they were talking about how they were glad that they're no longer subject to gun violence, and they were using these paintball guns to make sure that they're able to get rid of that violence and frustrations without having to seriously injure anyone. And just watching that video, I decided, okay, maybe I should do a little bit more research into it. It sounded interesting. And when I did more research into it, I came across this article talking about two deaths that was linked to this whole paintball movement. And one of them was sadly a 3-year-old child who was killed as a result of a crossfire between someone who was frustrated that they got shot by paintballs and decided to use an actual gun. And just reading about that news story made me very upset and sad. So I did a little bit more research, found out there was someone actually in Greensboro who was suspected to have been killed because as a result of this paintball movement. And in my research, I found out that the movement was started by a rapper called 21 Savage, and the whole point of the movement was to reduce gun violence. And I think there was a good motivation behind this. And even in one of the interviews, one of the police officers that was being interviewed even said that it's it's a really nice notion that people are trying to reduce gun violence, but this is not the right direction to go. This is not the right solution for it. And at the same time, they do have solutions that they would love to talk to people about if they're interested. And just by listening to some of those interviews, it was really nice to see that the police and law enforcement is starting to see the power of social media. They're starting to see how social media can have a real effect on the day-to-day life of especially our generation. And I think that was not a wake-up call, but that was a good, powerful notion for them that this is something that they can do in the future to bring communities together. And while looking more into the story as part of the project, I drew a small comparison between this and the Israel and Palestine conflict. Even though they're completely different, and Israel and Palestine conflict, they have a much bigger history and a much not bigger reason, but a much deeper reason for the conflict. One of the things that I was able to connect was how some of the movements that we watched, saw about in the films we watched in that area, as well as this movement, they both had used social media to start up. While this one was started by a celebrity, it had a faster traction and a bigger crowd. But at the same time, even there in Israel and Palestine, the movement was started in social media, and that really shows the power of social media and having an open internet which is like a problem we're facing in our modern day now. And it's here I'm talking about again how the police officers have finally seen how social media can affect uh, real world problems. And in the end here, I'm just talking about how being in this class has opened up my mind to how I consume news, how I dissect news, and how I consume that information. While in the past, watching an interesting news story, it intrigued me. I was interested in it. I never went any deeper into it. I never thought about which way it was being presented and why it was presented in such a way. And now, whenever I listen to a news story, I'm able to think about it a little bit more deeply and actually understand the different viewpoints that might be being presented or might not be presented. And another thing that this class has helped me is becoming a better writer and a better storyteller. And that is something that will stay with me for a good amount of time and I hope to grow upon. So, thank you.